Hello everybody, my name is Sniping is Fun, and I welcome you all back to my next top 10 list here on my YouTube channel. And what better list to do than to commemorate today with the release of Hogwarts Legacy than what I would say is my top 10 best Harry Potter video games. Should say Hogwarts Legacy technically comes out today because of the whole digital deluxe version, but it really comes out on Friday on the 10th, so February 7th to commemorate it, and I'm super looking forward to it. Being a big Harry Potter fan, I want to give you all my list of what I consider the top 10 best Harry Potter video games. So, without further ado, and to make sure this video doesn't go on too long, let's get this started. I'd be dressed for the occasion if I could find my Slytherin shirt, because I own a Slytherin shirt somewhere in here, but I couldn't find it. So, next best thing, a Darth Vader Star Wars shirt. But with that being said, let's start this list. My name is Sniping is Fun, list like I said, and let's start with what I consider to be the top 10 best Harry Potter video games. And if you don't know what Harry Potter is, which I don't know, first off, given it's one of the biggest IPs in the world, how that would be, but if you don't know what it is, Harry Potter is a book franchise created by J.K. Rowling about the world of Harry Potter and wizards and witches and Hogwarts and all this other stuff that started back in the 90s. The first movie came out in 2001, and the video games have been coming out since 2001, since the movie franchise started. So for the last 22 years, we've been seeing Harry Potter games. From ones based off movies, to spin-offs, to side games, to mobile games, to freaking party-style, puzzle, what the hell else ever side games, motion control games. So I took them all into consideration. I played a good majority of the franchise, and I wanted to commemorate that with today's Hogwarts Legacy release and giving me my top 10. I said that already technically, but I wanted to kind of get the mood started. So with that being said, number 10 is Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban on the Game Boy Advance. You're going to be seeing on this list, especially because early on with the franchise, most of the games kind of sort of had different versions on different systems. Later on, they kind of started having most of the versions outside of handhelds being the same game or being very, very similar but with some differences. But early on, they pretty much had each game be different on the platform, especially for the first 3 movies. And Prisoner of Azkaban on the Game Boy Advance was a continuation of what the handheld versions of the games at the time were. Role-playing games. They were RPGs, and this one specifically was very much like a Golden Sun style RPG where you play as Harry, Ron, Hermione, the party. You level up, you fight random encounter enemies, you buy equipment, you just go through the adventure of it. And it was an overall good version of the game, and me as an RPG fan, I would say it was a good... it's one of the things I loved about the game was it was an RPG, and I loved the differences of the games back then, and that was one I gravitated to, and I thought it was a good game. And it's as simple as that. I just think it was a good game. Number 9 is going to Harry Potter and Sorcerer's Stone on the PC. The PC games tended to be more puzzle-based, stage-based. You do puzzles in the classes to learn the spells and so on and so forth. More so than the platforming adventure games that the console, versions usually got. And this one was one that I experienced. I've never been such a big PC gamer, but I did play this, and I do remember it, and it was a good game. It had good gameplay, music, freaking, voice acting. It was different enough from the console version at the time, which my main console version was the PS1 version, that it felt like its own experience. And if you grew up with the games and your first experiences with the PC versions, you got good games of the game. You got good versions of the series for the games. And I liked the fact that it was more of a different approach, puzzle-based, and learning the spells and taking the classes and whatnot. So I commemorated that by saying it's probably one of the top games in the series, and I'd go with, the PC version of Sorcerer's Stone as number 9. Number 8 is going to Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, the 6th gen version, the PS2, GameCube, Xbox version. This was definitely the biggest jump in the series for me at the time because I went from playing the PlayStation 1 version of Sorcerer's Stone to playing the GameCube version of Chamber of Secrets. I was super hyped for it. I rented it, and I beat it in one rental because it's, first off, not the longest game. Second off, it's not super challenging. It has some moments in it that were a little challenging, but it's not like the hardest game in the series. And I love the elements of it being like more of like an adventure platforming kind of dungeon crawling style game, because that era of like Harry Potter games very much felt like Legend of Zelda. Like every class, you went into a dungeon, you learned the spell, you used the spell to make it through some sort of dungeon challenge, some class challenge, and it was an overall fun experience. Good music and design, graphics, a big jump up from the PlayStation 1 version for me particularly, and overall, a good version of the game. Number 7 is going to Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, the PC version. This continued what Sorcerer's Stone did on the PC version, and then eventually Chamber of Secrets, while the console versions, like I said, more so are like an action-y, platformy style dungeon crawly game, doing like stuff like that. The PC version still continued doing like puzzles and spells and stuff for classes, and this basically was just the embodiment of what they were building up with Sorcerer's Stone and Chamber of Secrets, and I think that's the reason why I put it above Sorcerer's Stone, because it just was more refined, it was more well done than what they did with Chamber of Secrets and Sorcerer's Stone, and the experience they did from that, they just improved all the parts that weren't like good, and they made it better, and the PC version of it stood out more than the earlier PC versions. Number 6 is going to go to the Game Boy Color version of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. I absolutely loved this version of the game. It was, like I said, first off, it was an RPG, and this was around the time I was starting to get into RPGs, so seeing an RPG version of it was really, really cool. It plays more like, while the Prisoner of Azkaban version was more like Golden Sun, this was more like classic 2D Final Fantasy. You level up, you get your party together, which is Hermione and Ron, you learn spells through the classes, you buy equipment, buy armor, level up, and so forth. And it had like a New Game Plus mode where you can just go over it again and keep the same level and equipment, and I was able to get to like through the game 4 or 5 times, leveling up to the point where I could beat the game in like an hour or two because my characters were so well equipped and so powered up and leveled up. It was fun. Until eventually I got stuck, because at the end with the petrified Neville, I got stuck on it, the file got saved, and when you load the file, my character's just stuck on Neville. Thank you, Neville! But it was such a fun game collecting the cards, like the Wizard and Witches cards, and one of my friends was becoming friends with at the time was also in Harry Potter. He also had the game, we interacted with each other. It was a fun experience. And a well-rounded handheld version. If you haven't had a chance to play this game and you like RPGs, especially classic Final Fantasy, I would suggest looking out and playing it, finding it and playing it. We're in the top 5. Number 5, we go from one Sorcerer's Stone version to the next, and number 5 is Harry Potter and Sorcerer's Stone on the PS1. This was my first Harry Potter game ever. Like, this was before I seen the movie. This was before I started reading the book series. My one other friend, this isn't the same friend that I mentioned with the Game Boy Color, he had the game. I played over his house. Just the world of witches and wizards and Hogwarts was so fascinating to me, and I loved the game. It's unlike the PC version. It's more like a action-y, platformy style game compared to the puzzles on the PC. And I played this way more than I ever did the PC version. I didn't play a whole lot of the PC version, and I only really played Sorcerer's Stone on the PC. When it came to Prisoner of Azkaban, it was more so friends playing it or seeing other people online and what they're talking about, which I took into account with this. This entire list had to be not just my experiences, but people in general with Harry Potter games, because I haven't had a chance to play every single one of them. But I was never the biggest PC gamer outside of stuff like Sims and Roller Coaster Tycoon and other little games here and there. I never decided to upgrade my PC over the years and, stick with PC gaming. I was more always a console handheld gamer. But the PS1 version, it has a certain charm to it. It's more based off the books than what later renditions were kind of basing off the movies. PS1 Hagrid, it had a certain charm to it. There was a certain charm to it to the point where it pulled me in as a non-fan of the series that never read any of the books, and the movies just came out. And it got me interested to stick through it and read and watch and all that stuff. So I had to do something right. That's the reason why I put that version over the Game Boy Color version, which, as much as I love the Game Boy Color version, another game on this list later on down the line improved upon it, like how I mentioned Prisoner of Azkaban. PC version was improved over the first game, Sorcerer's Stone. So that's that. Number 4 is going to like the main spin-off game of Harry Potter, and that's Harry Potter Quidditch World Cup. The console version, the 6th gen version, PS2, GameCube, Xbox. The handheld version is cool. The Game Boy Advance version is pretty cool, and I got it the same day on Christmas 2003 that I got my GameCube version. But it doesn't compare in the original. In the console version, it's just so much a grander experience. You know, you play as the Hogwarts house, then you actually get to experience the World Cup and the teams that a lot of people at the time who didn't keep up with the books, and at the time we were not even on Prisoner of Azkaban yet in terms of movies. People didn't really see the outside world of Harry Potter outside of Hogwarts, and we got to see what the Quidditch World Cup teams from Japan and USA to Bulgaria and France. So it's pretty cool to see that. Some good gameplay to it. It's not the most in-depth gameplay, but for a fun little side Quidditch game, which we always had little parts of it in the series, but never had full experience of playing a Quidditch game. To have a full-fledged game based on that, doing all the different parts instead of just playing the Seeker, was actually really cool, and I remember playing it quite a bit with friends and family. It was a good multiplayer game back in the day. And I would love to see a second one, if they couldn't add DLC to Hogwarts Legacy. Number 3 is going to go to Lego Harry Potter Years 1 through 4. I didn't want to include the whole collection because technically that's more of a recent thing, so I wanted to separate them. And while Years 5 through 7 are also really good games, I'm mostly going for Years 1 through 4 for bang for your buck, for more content, because it has 4 years versus 3. And I think there's more interesting characters to play as. If you've never experienced Lego Harry Potter games, right now you can go out and spend like $20 and get the whole collection. I'm sure on Switch, Xbox, PlayStation, whatever. But if you like your Lego games and you like Harry Potter and you've never played this, I would highly suggest it. Both of them, in fact. It's a lot of hours of multiplayer action you could have. But it's a fun game, fun side story to it, just Lego rendition. If you like Star Wars and Lord of the Rings and like Indiana Jones and all the other Lego games, you'll love like Harry Potter. Number 2 is going to go to Harry Potter in the Chamber of Secrets, the Game Boy Color version. I mentioned earlier with the Sorcerer's Stone, and I was so close to putting the Sorcerer's Stone version, like Game Boy Color version, at number 2 and putting the Chamber of Secrets one down lower, but that was more so due to nostalgia. And I kind of had to put that to the wayside a little bit because while I love Sorcerer's Stone more so than Chamber of Secrets, Chamber of Secrets is a more refined game. They took what they did with the Game Boy Color version of Sorcerer's Stone, improved upon it. Any of the issues with it, they made it better. It has more content. It's more visually better. There's more stuff to do. There's more stuff to unlock. There's more story to it. And I would suggest it is a better game. I would say it is a better, more refined game, so it's definitely, in my opinion, not only the second best Harry Potter game of all time, it's the best handheld Harry Potter game as of now. And if you like RPGs, especially Final Fantasy RPGs, and you like the world of Harry Potter and you've never had a chance to play in these, I would suggest going back and playing Sorcerer's Stone, Prisoner of Azkaban, Chamber of Secrets on the Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance. Really, really fun games, and this, in my opinion, is the best of the bunch, Chamber of Secrets. And then before we get to number 1, a few honorable mentions. I want to mention that barely missed the list, but they're notable games in the series that I think deserve mention. Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone on PS2, GameCube, and Xbox. For me personally, I never experienced this version, at all. By the time I got the PS2, GameCube, and Xbox, I already played the PS1 version of Sorcerer's Stone, and Chamber of Secrets was out, and then when Sorcerer's Stone's PS2, GameCube, Xbox version came out, I was too busy with Quidditch World Cup. So I never got a chance to experience this, but what they did in Chamber of Secrets, they technically improved upon it. It's basically just the dungeon crawling aspect of Chamber of Secrets, but better, I think. And I've heard a lot of good things about this version of the game. Lego Harry Potter Years 5 through 7. Awesome, classic Lego gameplay. If you like Years 1 through 4, Years 5 through 7, like Lego games, Harry Potter games, definitely a recommendation. A very good multiplayer game. Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince on the Wii, PS3, and 360. A good game. It was an improvement over what they did in Order of the Phoenix, with being able to go around the school and everything. They improved dueling a little bit. They added the potion making stuff, which was fun. It was very much based off the movie. It wasn't the greatest Harry Potter experience, which is why it's not on the top 10. But it was a good, fun experience, and I beat it in like a weekend when I rented it back in the day on the Wii. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 on the Wii PS3 360. I know a lot of people don't like the Deathly Hallows games. They are not that great, and that's the reason why this isn't on the list. But I would say Part 2 Deathly Hallows is an improvement over the first one with the whole cover mechanics, Gears of War style thing, like a third-person shooter. It was a fun game. They improved upon it, and it's at least an interesting experience if you've never played it to at least experience it. It's not worth being on the top 10, but it's an interesting experience. Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets on the PC, just like I mentioned with Prisoner of Azkaban, just like I mentioned with Sorcerer's Stone, very much puzzle and stage-based stuff compared to the platforming, action-y, dungeon-crawling versions of the console equivalent, but it's a good game. It improved what they did with Sorcerer's Stone that was later improved with Prisoner of Azkaban, but I didn't put it on the list because Sorcerer's Stone started it and has more charm to it, and Prisoner of Azkaban is like the most improved PC version, like the end game style final evolution of it. So it's still a fun game if you want to play Chamber of Secrets. And then Harry Potter Hogwarts Mystery, which was the phone game. It might be a little side game. It's like it has microtransactions and stuff in it, but it has a fun little story and quirky little things. If you have a little time on like a bus ride or whatever, you get a chance to throw in a few minutes to play the game. It's fun for what it is, being able to create your own character and do like a Harry Potter story, but it's still interesting. It's not the definitive Harry Potter experience, but it's something I think you would enjoy if you like Harry Potter and like little phone mobile games. And drum roll, please, for what I think the number one Harry Potter game of all time currently is Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban on the PS2, GameCube, and Xbox, a 6th-gen console version of the game. And I just think it's an overall, it's what they did with Chamber of Secrets on the PS2, GameCube, and Xbox, Sorcerer's Stone, improved. There's more content to it. There's more refinability. It was like the first game where you really go around the school. Like they add stuff with the Chamber of Secrets in the Sorcerer's Stone, but it was still very restricted. This one felt like it was a little more open. It was the first game with being a little more open. You got to play as Ron and Hermione as well when you go through the dungeons. Every character has their own special abilities. They all have their own little abilities to it. And I just think, in my opinion, as of now, having played all these Harry Potter games up to this point, and Hogwarts Legacy is still too new, it is the best Harry Potter experience because it has more bang for your buck. There's more content. There's different characters you could play as, like the Game Boy handheld RPGs and whatnot. And it's just more of like being able to explore the castle and explore the world. And that's my list. Put in the comment section what you guys think. What do you guys think of this list? What are some of your favorite Harry Potter games? What do you think is the best Harry Potter game? And are you playing Hogwarts Legacy right now? Stay tuned for more videos from me. My name is Snipersman. Peace. Please subscribe if you want. Please subscribe if you want to. Have a lovely day, and see you later in my next video. Bye, everybody.